Good morning, everybody. Okay, y'all, I have a job for you. We're going to start off with the song this morning. When you see my banjo, I know y'all get worried, so I'm going to try to make this easy on you, but I didn't make it easy on you. So I've got a song, and it's got a chorus that I want you to sing along. There we go. I have a chorus for this song. I want you to sing along with me, but I made it hard because we're going to sing the first two lines together, then I'm going to sing some other thing, and then you join me. So it's, so tell me your story. Tell me your tale. Could be a love song or a mournful wail. And then I'm going to sing this other thing for just one line. And then you're going to tell me your story, tell me your tale. And there's going to be like verses and things like that. So I'm going to try to conduct you all and play the banjo and sing this song. Without further ado, key of C, the people's key, I think. Okay, we're going to start off together. Tell me your story, tell me your tale. Tell me your story, tell me your tale. Could be a love song, could be a love song, or a mournful wail. A mournful wail. When you won that prize fight, or when you went to jail. Tell me your story, tell your tale. Well, I was born in Iowa, surrounded by corn all the night and day. We'd spend our evenings hearing it grow and making up stories of what we did not know. Tell me your story, tell me your tale. Could be a love song, could be a love song or a mournful wail. How you beat that dragon or you ran away. Tell me your story, tell me your tale. My dear old daddy, he looked big and mean, but a sweeter feller you'd never seen. He'd be so quiet, then he'd be a riot, cracking us up with jokes so sweet. Tell me your story, tell me your tale. Could be a love song, could be a love song or a mournful wail. Don't text me or phone me or send it through the mail. Tell me your story, tell me your tale. My dear old mama, she had a lively mind, a more curious person you'd never find. She loved to visit, she'd really quiz ya. She never met a stranger, they were instant friends. So tell me your story, tell me your tale. Could be a love song or a mournful wail. How you got it all or how you failed. So tell me your story, tell me your tale. So tell me your story, so tell me your tale. If you don't have one, grab a hammer and a nail. We'll build together, we cannot fail. We'll tell our story, we'll tell our tale. So tell me your story, tell me your tale. It could be a love song or a mournful wail. How you beat that dragon or you ran away. Tell me your tale one more time. So tell me your story, tell me your tale. Could be a love song or a mournful wail. How you got it all or how you failed. Tell me your story, tell me your tale. Thanks, everybody. Okay, so thank you for jumping in and singing along with me. Before we take a minute to greet one another, please prevent your cell phone from telling its tale. And please silence it for the duration of the service so we can be more present with one another. So please take a minute to greet those around you. Please be mindful of how they may wish to be greeted. This morning's land acknowledgement will be read by Lindsay Dunkel.
Good morning. All right, in case you all didn't fully appreciate that, he just wrote that song this week for this service. By placing this basket of black oak acorns on our altar, we acknowledge the Nisenan people who are still here among us today, though nearly invisible after generations of erasure and exclusion from California's history. We understand that we are on Nisenan land that was never ceded, never given up, and the original tribal families have yet to recover from the genocide of their people. We commit ourselves to supporting the Nisenan in their efforts to stabilize their people and restore tribal sovereignty, and we celebrate with them as they make steps towards both those things.
Good morning. This is entitled Sometimes Writing by Pat Snyder. Sometimes writing sits in you like a wild animal. Maybe you see its eyes, maybe you don't see it at all. But the hair on the back of your neck knows it is here, where the deepest shadows lie. Often the shadows lie about what's hiding in them. The panther that has stalked you since you were a child is old now, no longer wild and tired of guarding the treasure you yourself left behind. Blind in death, she will give it all to you if you just let her go. But how are you to know whether the fox on the hill in the cemetery carries your mother's name, or is it the same fox you saw crossing your backyard in the snow? Unless you put your pen to paper and use it to release the animal that hides in the shadow of your hand.
Okay, well, let's sing our children off to Kids Connection with This Little Light of Mine.
Good morning again. I am Tracy Pepper. I am, along with Randy, your worship associate for the day. Hi. I've come to cherish the ways stories reveal themselves, sometimes in song, sometimes in silence, often through the simple courage it takes to write something down. In preparing for today, I found myself returning to the quiet power of writing as a way to tell the truth, to remember, and sometimes to be free. You will experience that power today through the voices of our UU writing group. Each reading, each reflection is a thread in a larger tapestry of spiritual practice, vulnerability, and resilience. You'll hear original works, witness personal truths, and be invited into the sacred act of listening, not just with your ears, but with your full attention and open heart. Together, we'll explore how writing can serve as both mirror and lantern, showing us who we've been and lighting the way toward who we're becoming. We'll be moved by music that deepens these moments, the stories held in songs, the rhythm of collective reflection. You'll also be invited to name the joys and sorrows that you carry today, anchoring our time in community presence. This service asks nothing of you more than your presence and maybe your curiosity. We're not here to we're here to observe other stories, not just our own. We're here to remember that we all carry sacred words within us. Some are already written, some are still waiting to be set free. So let's begin this journey together.
Our chalice lighting words were written by a woman named Pat Schneider, taken from her book, How the Light Gets In, Writing as a Spiritual Practice. Ms. Schneider developed a writing workshop method known as the Amherst Writers Method, named after the town she lived in Massachusetts. Pat believed in the power of writing and its ability to transform people's lives and the world around them. In her book, Writing Alone and with Others, she makes the assertion that all of us, every one of us, are writers. Every one of us are artists. All of us are creators of one kind or another. And although today we are talking about writing, you can substitute the practice of any artistic pursuit in here. All of us tell stories about how our day went, tell jokes, talk to others, talk to ourselves about how we see the world or what is happening on a personal level. She said that not being able to write is a learned disability, a result of disbelief in ourselves that accumulates over time. She believed that if we take up pen and paper, if we tap on a computer keyboard, if we use the texting app on our smartphones, we are a writer. She believed writing was a fundamental act of the human spirit. She was a proponent of the practice of writing morning pages, described by Dorothea Brand in her 1934 book, Becoming a Writer. The best way, Dorothea says, the best way to do this is to rise half an hour or a full hour earlier than you customarily rise. Just as soon as you can, and without talking, without reading the morning's paper, without picking up the book you said that you laid aside the night before, begin to write. Write anything that comes into your head. Last night's dream, if you are able to remember it. The activities of the day before. A conversation, real or imaginary. An examination of conscience. Write any sort of early morning reverie, rapidly and uncritically. The excellence or ultimate worth of what you write is of no importance. Julia Cameron brought this idea to many of us in the 1980s with her book, The Artist's Way, wherein she recommends a daily practice of writing 3 pages of daily longhand writing, strictly stream of consciousness, done in the morning. She said, morning pages bear witness to our lives. They increase our conscious contact with spiritual guidance. And the words of Pat Schneider, once again, writing can be a spiritual practice. To write about what is painful is to begin the work of healing. To write the red of a tomato before it is mixed into beans for chili is a form of praise. To write an image of a child caught in war is confession or petition or requiem. To write grief onto a page of lined pages until tears blur the ink is often the surest access to giving or receiving forgiveness. To write a comic scene is grace and beatitude. To write irony is to seek justice. To write admission of failure is humility. To be in an attitude of praise or thanksgiving, to rage against God, or to open one's inner self and listen is prayer. To write tragedy and allow comedy to arise between the lines is miracle and revelation. I have taken upon myself this task to give voice to what has been growing within me, a conviction that writing itself can open into mystery. So Pat believed that meaningful spirituality has at its center a connection to healing the world. She said, often the act of writing gives the writer access to the exact center, the heart, where the inner fire of commitment sparks the necessity of action in the world. She pointed out works of writing and art that have galvanized the public into action for the sake of a cause. So in 1995, in my 30s, I was living in Brooklyn, New York. In a moment of personal crisis, when I was having a difficult time with navigating a music career, when I didn't believe in my abilities as a creative person, I joined a writing workshop run by one of Pat's former students. It was liberating, it was healing, so much so that just a few years later, I traveled to Amherst for an extended weekend to be certified as an Amherst Writers Workshop leader. As Pat said, among the tasks we are given as writers, artists, creators, give your art, your writing, give it time. Become more and more like yourself. Believe in the importance of your own experience and imagination. Protect yourself from the things that undermine a belief in yourself. What I learned from Pat and all the people that I wrote with in the many workshops she led and inspired was that writing, or any creative act, when we give it time, when we try to express ourselves, is a healing act that can change the world. So every week, we light a candle, this candle of flame of compassion, resistance, and resilience. This morning, I noticed the wick was low. Tracy and I had a very difficult time getting it to light. But once Tracy nurtured it, spent some time with it, there it was, burning bright. With the many changes and almost daily upending of our lives, our beliefs, it is a reminder that we have each other, that there are people in the world witnessing and working for a better world. So this morning, as we're talking about expressing ourselves, communicating to others or to ourselves through the act of writing, there are also those times when these joys and sorrows and experiences and all the experiences in between are still forming, are not ready for words or are beyond verbal expression. In a moment, if you wish, you may come forward and place a stone in the bowl of water, the stones representing your particular joy or sorrow, the water symbolizing how we in this community are holding one another. I'm going to invite Gwen Iman from our caring committee to come forward. And also, those of you at home or on Zoom, if you wish, you may type into the chat a joy or sorrow, a care or concern that you carry in your heart this morning, or you can type an O as the parallel of placing a stone in the bowl. I placed a few stones in the bowl for those joys and sorrows that remain unexpressed this morning. Please join me in our singing meditation. You can remain seated, but let's sing There's a River Flowing in My Soul. So now we're going to hear from members of our UU Writers Group, beginning with Jenny Dewey.
Good morning. So if anybody remembers the last time I was up here, I promised I would never be up here again. And here I am. So what I'm reading today is called My First Book. I wrote an autobiography when I was 12. This was my first book. My two older sisters were determined to ruin my life. I wanted a way to express this, to document it. My grandmother died that year, and Stalin died, and the Korean armistice was signed. In my 12-year-old mind, these events made it a momentous year. I didn't have much information on Stalin. I only knew he was a bad man. The Korean armistice struck me as a good idea. At the time, I was against war, and I still am. I didn't know much about my grandmother. She was almost a stranger to me. My grandmother lived in Chicago. She never came west to visit our ranch in northern New Mexico. She said she didn't like dust. I had slim knowledge of her from family visits to Chicago in the summers. I remembered her as a woman who rarely smiled. What I didn't know about her, I invented. I made assumptions and relied on my imagination to create a portrait of her. I was an avid reader of the Hardy Boy books and Little Lulu comics. Every word in these publications was made up, so I figured it was legal. In my 12-year-old mind, my book was a masterpiece. The illustrations alone would put my book on the map. I drew each character as a fruit or a vegetable. My sisters were grapefruit. My brother, my baby brother, was a prune. Stalin was a lemon. My grandmother was an artichoke. I'd never seen or eaten an artichoke, and I didn't know much about them. I knew one thing: they were prickly. I didn't know quite how to illustrate the armistice, so I decided to draw the Korean flag. I knew my book would never be published. The publisher would view it as childish. Knowing this did not deter me. I was ambitious. I would write another book. This time it would be about my pony, Polly, a stubborn little Shetland. I would once again use my imagination to fill the gaps in my knowledge. Now I work with authors who fully grasp the concepts of imagining and dreaming. I tell them no one else in the world has their story to tell. It belongs to them alone. The foundation of my approach is to encourage, provide editorial help, and create a safe place to experiment and develop skills. We talk about the craft of writing and cover the basics. We critique each other. We have lively discussions and nearly always run overtime. I call myself a mentor and a coach. My goal is to encourage writers to discover the world of story inside them. Once a writer starting out came to say she had nothing to share. She happens to be here today. She said, "I'm a writer now because I have writer's block." This happens. People come anyway. I figure they want to discover the story inside them. Thank you.
Why write? Reading was my first love. Writing quickly followed. Reading opened up worlds beyond my experience. Writing helped me find understanding of myself and how I fit into those worlds. As a kid, I wrote stories to amuse my family. I wrote them to grab attention and to feel connected. I learned to love that moment when whoever was reading or listening to my story understood what I was trying to convey. I could feel our connection to each other. For me, connection is always the prize I am constantly searching for, the prize for dealing with this messy, painful life. Writing connects me to others. I've used writing to uncover, discover, and recover my life. I have filled diaries and journals with curiosities and observations. They hold my longings and my joy. Those pages help me sort out the past and nurture the tender beginnings of what is to come. When I write honestly about my life, a miraculous thing happens. The sharp, painful edges soften, and the joyful moments deepen. I find a truer version of myself. Writing reminds me that I am a work in progress. I fell in love with writing papers and essays. Yes, in love with writing papers and essays. In the 4th grade, I had gotten in trouble for talking in class. The behavior was not uncommon, but the punishment was. My punishment this time was to write a paper, and Mrs. Heikkinen chose McCarthyism for my topic. While doing my 9-year-old version of microfiche research, I became engrossed and fascinated with what I was learning. Through the writing process, I wove what I was learning with my thoughts and my opinions. It was challenging and exciting. It changed how I looked at the world. I found I sympathized with those blacklisted, and I realized my idea of freedom was very different than that of Joseph McCarthy. It was the first time using writing as a tool to sift through how I felt about a grown-up world topic. I wonder, had Mrs. Heikkinen simply chosen to have me read up on Joseph McCarthy, would it have taken the same hold? Writing integrates knowledge. Writing helps clear out the noise and clutter that collects between my ears. When I sit down to write, I often have an idea or a memory I want to explore. I set out with a goal of achieving a better understanding of myself and the world. I have an idea of where I'm going, but I've yet to arrive where I thought I was headed. It is like the best road trip ever. You get excited about what's ahead, you have an idea of what you're going to discover, and then you're surprised by what actually emerges. Writing is a journey. Being part of a writing group is a new experience for me. I listen to how each member uses their words and their stories to share their view of the world. We learn from each other and about each other. Reading my stories and receiving feedback improves my writing skills and stretches my vulnerability muscles. Jenny, our leader and mentor, provides honest, direct, and loving insight that is never a directive. She nurtures and guides us as we discover and draw our stories into the light. The group brings weekly gifts of laughter and support. I'm growing as a person and as a writer because of this group. Writing is a community. When I was little, I dreamed of one day being a writer. I kept putting it off, waiting till there was time, till I had enough money, till I had something important to say, till. Joining Jenny's writing group, writing this piece and reflecting on why I write, what I have written, I realized I've been a writer all along.
Good morning.
Good morning. I titled this piece, Turning the Insides Out, My Writing Autobiography. In elementary school, I equated writing with penmanship. I really did. In 5th grade, we were assigned the task of writing a report on a state. I chose Ohio. I wrote a 20-page report, every word of it copied from the encyclopedia. The penmanship was nothing short of spectacular in my 10-year-old eyes. It would be years before I came to realize that writing is so much more than penmanship. Gradually, my conception of writing began to shift from penmanship to summarizing what I had learned from my teachers' lessons and assignments. My teachers would pour information into me, and I would pour it back out on demand in the form of writing. For me, writing had become an assessment strategy that teachers used to make judgments about the accuracy and extent of my learning. I took those assessments very seriously. This conception of writing emerged in my junior high years, stayed with me all the way through high school, and continued on into the early undergraduate years of my university education. My conception of writing as assessments was not substantively challenged until my junior year in college when I enrolled in a modern literature course. My professor, Hans Guth, insisted that our writings explore our own original thoughts, not ideas from his lectures that we dutifully copied down into our notes. His assignments were open-ended, leaving no way to accomplish them without thinking for ourselves. One paper I wrote for that class that I still recall in some detail involved 3 plays, all written by authors who espoused Marxist ideologies. As I was sifting through these plays looking for a hook to use in my paper, I noticed how all the female characters either had very minor roles like housekeepers or dutiful daughters, or in the one case when a female character had a major role, she was cast as a threat to the Marxist world order, sort of like a modern-day Eve. I began to think how ironic it was that these male playwrights who espoused equitable distribution of wealth and communal ownership of resources did not seem to have a sense of women as sharing in that equality or those resources. I loved that I had that idea. I wrote feverishly to articulate and support it. Professor Guth received it well and engaged with my thinking in the comments he wrote on my paper. I felt like a literary scholar, not a student. Eleanor Duckworth referred to this kind of experience as, quote, the having of wonderful ideas. Years later, I found out that I was not the first person to have wonderful ideas about the hypocrisy of Marxist authors. Volumes had been written about it. But I did not know that. It was an original idea to me, and to the credit of Professor Guth, he did not take that joy away from me by pointing out that others had beaten me to the punch. From that class on, I was drawn to writing experiences that allowed me, and ultimately my future students, to express our wonderful ideas. My research during my university career focused on the motivating effects of encouraging students to use writing to express their own wonderful ideas. I built a 30-plus year career in education around that wonderful idea about having wonderful ideas. Then in the year 2000, I quit writing. I did not write anything of significance for over 20 years. I felt all dried up when it came to having wonderful ideas. Other matters took center stage in my life. That is until March 25th, 2021, the day my husband of 40 years died at the age of 97. All that day, as my stepson and I took care of the many details that come along with having a loved one die at home, I began to feel a bubbling up. Each bubble was an intense desire to express myself. My husband died at 6 a.m., and by 9 p.m., I was sitting at my dining room table, writing what I later came to call a memorial essay. In this essay, I delineated all the phases of his long, adventurous life. I captured his philosophical spirit, showing how he manifested it with consistency and clarity in all that he did. I knew I was the only person on earth who had his full story to tell. Others had parts of it, but I had all of it. And I was driven to get it out and down on paper so that it would not be forgotten. I wrote all night from the late hours of March 25th into the early hours of March 26th. It was a completely different sort of writing for me. It did not fit exactly the having of wonderful ideas mode that had sustained my long career in education. The writing I did on that night and morning in March was more like turning the inside out. I had all of this information about Rob that filled me with feelings and insights that needed to see the light of day. I had to turn the inside out so that light could shine on it and through it. That memorial essay began for me a period of inside-out writing that continues to this day. My earliest versions of inside-out writing occurred whenever my grieving mind sent submerged memories up into my consciousness, popcorn style. I would suddenly remember these little episodes from my 40 years with Rob, and I needed to get them down on paper before I forgot them again. I call these short pieces autobiographical vignettes. Taken all together, they capture the fullness, the sweetness, the silliness, and the struggles of my life with Rob. I treasure them. While I am still writing to turn my insides out, now I write about other issues rumbling around inside of me, such as my experiences with the Kids Connection program that we run upstairs on Sunday mornings, or the fits and starts of rebuilding a life, my life. The whole process of self-expression continues to sustain me. I treasure my UUCM writing group, with Jenny as our trusted, talented, and empathetic leader. This group is my audience for the inside-out pieces that I continue to produce. The camaraderie in this group is deep and meaningful. I'm honored and grateful to be a founding member of this extraordinary worship of writers.
Before I offer this story, I invite you to just take a deep breath and settle in to the hush between the heartbeats, to the quiet that comes before a truth reveals itself. Some stories come to us in dreams, others rise from the ashes, whispered by those who were never meant to be forgotten. I've entitled this piece, "The Fire That Freed Annabelle." Just for context, a few weeks ago, a fire swept through what was once the largest antebellum slave plantation in the South, in deep Louisiana. The structure was completely destroyed. This story carries the weight of silenced voices, the pulse of ancestral knowing, and the flicker of a flame that refused to go out. So as you listen, I invite you to feel for the places in your own life where fire touches you, not to destroy, but to awaken. Let this story be one that stirs something in you, a story that dares to be seen. The fire that freed Annabella. They say the house caught fire in the middle of the night. No wind, no lightning, no candle left burning. Just flame, fast and sure, swallowing the old walls like they'd been waiting for it. Some folks called it tragedy, but some of us called it justice. They said Annabelle was hard at work, and then they chuckled uneasy. Maybe she didn't like her name. Maybe she don't. You see, names hold weight. Names were taken, replaced, branded onto skin, written into ledgers, spoken like commands. Annabelle, sweet and southern, stitched and laced in sugar, but not hers. That name belonged to the mistress, the master, the system. Maybe once she was Sade or Ame or Kame, names that may have meant honor or mother or saved by the fire. But they gave her Annabelle, not from love, but from ownership. And maybe she carried that name like a stone in her mouth, year after year, chained to the sound of it. But names have memory, and memory don't forget. So when that old plantation caught flame, when the porch caved in, and the white columns wept soot, some of us knew it wasn't just fire, it was a reckoning. It was Annabelle hard at work, working for the ones who couldn't, working for the ones still bound, working for us. Burning away the lies, burning away the pretty stories, burning away the name. She wasn't angry, she was awake. Alive in the heat of justice, in the smoke of truth, and the flames that cleanse the blood-soaked soil. Because what they call destruction, we might just call freedom. And maybe, just maybe, that name, the one that she never asked for, was the last thing to burn. She don't like her name, and now she don't have to.
Thank you. The Cecil B. DeMille in me comes out occasionally. I have to direct. All expression is not necessarily verbal. It can be given through acts of support to one another. Each week, we ask you to please, if you're able, to give support to this congregation through our weekly offering. 50% of our offering this month will support Color Me Human, whose mission is to fearlessly fight systems of oppression and boldly champion equity and inclusion for all people, serving as a bridge to building a vibrant and empowered community. Please see the slide for other ways to give. And ask the ushers to please come forward. Thank you for your generosity. We dedicate these offerings to those of us in the world who are working to make the world one in which everyone's value is recognized, where everyone's voice is heard and acted upon. All right, I've got my glasses so I can read the thank you credits today. So on behalf of Tracy, my fellow worship associate, we'd like to thank Heather Grove for doing the music today. She sang, it's one of my favorite songs by Sean Colvin, so I appreciate you tackling that for us. Wanted to thank the readers, Jenny, Viv, Cheryl, thank you so much for sharing your stories with us today. Thanks to Paul and Cypress for doing all the crazy AV that we had this morning. Eileen Hale for being our chat hostess with the mostest. Linda for this beautiful setting. Thank you to our greeters, Lori, Corey, and Carl. Thank you to Gwen for the lay pastoral care. Thank you, Shannon and Lindsay, up with the kids, and for refreshments, Tracy and Joyce and all the people doing that. Few announcements. We have an artist reception for Gail Schultz today. After the service, please stop in. And Humanism Discussion Group is Wednesday. Singing Meditation Circle Thursday night at 7. UU 101, an intro to UUism and UUCM is next Sunday at noon. You can learn more about our Sunday services at our website, uugrassvalley.org. So we're gonna join me in singing our closing song, Wake Now My Senses. Heather's gonna play through it once for us. Words of Pat Schneider: give your art and writing time. Become more and more like yourself. Believe in the importance of your experience and imagination. Protect yourself from the things that undermine a belief in yourself. Writing, or any creative act, when we give it time, when we try to express ourselves, is a healing act that can change the world. So please join me in our closing words. Carry the flame of peace and love until we meet again. Please join us in the back for refreshments. And next week, we're doing declarations of independence, interdependence. So please stick around. We got art opening, all kinds of crazy stuff happening. Thanks.